Hello, my name is Levi Longfellow, Rochester, York, and we're doing a series of videos dictated by an entity by the name of Anttarr. And I believe I received an impression on the way here today that his discussion was going to be more information on human relationships and an assortment of other related factors, being that Anttarr is always weaving everything together into a type of a holistic matrix. We've found that it's always a good idea when we begin videotaping one of these communications to give a little bit of some of what I experience when I am entering into an altered state of consciousness, and what I experience when I am receiving psychic impressions and psychic information. And the sensations that I experience are very versatile. As I had mentioned before, sometimes it's being covered, like being covered with an electrical blanket, a non-physical blanket of some kind, and I may get goose pimples running up and down my body, and something very similar to chills, but the currents of energy may be very warm and soothing, or they might be very electrical and cause jerky movements in my muscles. It's not unusual for me to feel this energy rise up my spine to the base of my skull, and at which point I would begin to hear something like sounds, and occasionally, actually not so occasionally, I will begin to hear something like voices, and it sounds like voices that are being channeled down a 10,000-foot long vacuum hose tube, if you can imagine what something like that would sound like. I frequently begin to hear sounds that sound like if you took a seashell at the ocean and held it up to your ear, the kind of sound that that would make. And sometimes I hear something similar to whispers. And I hear these things at different speeds. Sometimes it's like I can hear an entire conversation in 1 second that may be several hours long. And I don't retain it all, but I'm able to get the gist of the information that they're wanting delivered. I actually feel an energy charge build up behind these communications and become released. And when the energy is released, there's all these communications that come with it. And this is just one of the innumerable ways that I personally experience these communications. It's not unusual for people to ask me how to be put into rapport or communication with their personal spirit guides. We don't call them guides usually, we call them friends. Believing that guide is kind of assigning them a role that they may or may not want. And you kind of have to give them the choice to elect how they want to be related to you and communicate with you and to serve you. And they all have their own personalities, just like we all do. And so it's kind of unpredictable just how such a contact might turn out when somebody's being introduced to their guides. One of my friends, in fact, was just introduced to a couple of their guides the other day through Anttarr. And apparently it was a very fascinating experience. And some of these entities have existed on the earth plane more than once before and thousands of years ago, and so they seem to have different traditions and communication patterns than we do today, thinking differently, kind of characteristic of the culture from which they come and that sort of thing. So these phenomena can take place in any number of innumerable ways, and I've been doing something that Anttarr suggests to all of our friends, all of our physical friends, and that is trying to work on making my vocabulary more sophisticated. So I hope some of that is shining through. I've been reading the dictionary off and on. I also notice whenever I watch something on the news or read something in the newspaper or happen to pick up a dictionary or something of that nature, Anttarr is always ready and right there to make comments about it and to do a dictation on the subject. So it's like the information never really stops. in the beginning it was kind of choppy and it would come through at different intervals. And now it's there all the time, and it just seems like Anttarr's one of those verbose beings that could go on about any subject virtually forever and has an unlimited information, whether it be on the evolution of medicine, modern medicine, hundreds of years into the future, or ancient techniques involving medicine or the roots of medicine as it exists here in the Western countries, are things on aesthetics and beauty, cosmetics, for God's sake. Can you believe that? I mean, it's just really something, the kind of information these entities are capable of coming up with. And as well as a host of other very important issues in people's lives, relationships being one of those issues. At least 80% of all of my clients and friends ask about relationships and how to improve them. And it's not usual for me to see a man's wife only for him to show up later in the day, and I didn't know they were related because they give me different names, and it turns out I give a married couple a reading and was uninformed, and they wind up sharing notes at home, and they're completely surprised each other, and they're very impressed that the information corresponds. Just little evidence that the universe gives you that maybe something really is going on, and this is not all a bunch of bull and deception. That's always wonderful. Of course, finding lots of missing people and children is nice validation too. But I think you never can get enough of that stuff, you know, because we live in such a doubting Thomas world. Well, enough of me and my communication. I am sliding into that place I go. All that I can say is that when I'm doing this, there's a particular inward sensation of movement. Sometimes it's like I'm a feather caught in a whirlwind, or that I'm going down a drain. I know that may sound peculiar. I actually get little tickly sensations in my stomach when this is happening. And I sense Anttarr's presence and contact and welcome and salutations. I bid you all good tidings, and I thank you from the most holy of inner sanctuaries for your participation in assisting to bring about the deliverance of information that will help transform your world and may assist you literally and concretely or virtually in expediting your personal attainment and making a difference not only in your personal world, but by making a difference in your personal world, making a difference in the world at large. As I have stated many a time through my medium, Shimoke, I am very, very old. In fact, I am older than all of your systems of measurement. the reality that I am not a figment of your imagination and not a subconscious production of my psychic Shimoge's personality. That I possess verifiable capacities far beyond those of the usual common man who is not yet awakened, lends validity and credentiality to the information that I deliver. It is not unusual for my human friends to hang on to every last word and syllable as if it were precious, like some scarce and invaluable resource. And the information is a result of eons of observation and compilation on my part and also on the parts of the other entities associated with my work. With a sense of humor and delightful play, but also with sometimes ferocious intensity, I attempt to deliver a modern version of knowledge from both within your physical historical periods, the passing of your centuries and the development of man and other species on your physical planet, but also from outside of the evolutionary and historical context that exists adjacent and beyond your home base, planet Earth. I am a literal, a real intergalactic and interdimensional entity. Like you are doing, I have incarnated into different worlds and dimensions of actuality and experienced the livelihood and the method of existence common to life forms in those dimensions, many, the majority, non-comprehensible to your dimension because the laws that those dimensions operate under would seem so alien to your method of comprehension. I am legitimate. I seek to educate self-aware beings and assist in the evolution in my small way, supporting the highest standards of evolutionary excellence that can be attained for any particular species of life in any dimension with which I come into contact. And truth is sometimes very different than human perception may make it out to be. You all have your own personal truths and principles, guidelines and values and emotional programs that affect your relationships with others in your life, in the waking state. But too few of you realize you also have another life, a life more aligned with the dimensions of actuality from which you come before you physicalize yourself in a human body and develop temporary amnesia for a lifetime, forgetting who you are. Reading a line in a book or a novel or watching a play or going to the theater, reading the paper, having a conversation with a friend or experiencing a sensation of déjà vu may temporarily jar your memories into operation, causing you to realize you are something bigger and grander than the concepts that you have bonded to emotionally, only to forget again for a period of time until the next episode occurs where you temporarily remember once again, with the associations flooding into your mind, that maybe science does not have all the answers and does not have the complete picture as to the nature of reality, whether it be personal reality, social reality, or biochemical reality. Maybe all of the disciplines in your world are slanted. Maybe generally they are not holistically oriented, dealing with their particular corner of the galaxy that they so preciously and esteemedly grasp onto, as is grasping for their very lives and survivalhood, as if the human spirit could be destroyed, as if the ego's survival of transition is something to avoid. You project your psychological and emotional qualities as self-sentient creatures into all that you do. And through the lenses of these ego patterns, you perceive all of your human relationships. I made reference earlier to your other lives. Not reincarnationally speaking, but to the other life you live when your eyes are closed, when you are sleeping, when you are dreaming. Briefly, in a daydream state, you may move into states of consciousness close to the dreaming condition, but still have some ego operation functioning, so that you remember your experiences. Sometimes you daydream so deeply you do not retain memory of your daydream because you were so identified and at one with that daydream experience. Frequently, when you are living in the moment and your senses are sharp and bright and acute, you are so at one with your experience, you experience no separation. Only later, when asked about the situation, do you engage memory and egotistical processes, separate the data and make sense of it in a new way. Fortunately, many humans live their entire lives in this fashion, never been able to separate the senses and the data and sift the data in their lives, making sense of personal and interpersonal social reality in a new and fundamentally more powerful fashion, limiting the social avenues of expression, the development of their identity, and the level of pleasure and reward in their physical existence. I intentionally utilize a vocabulary intended to expand your mind and your perceptions. As it penetrates into your cognitions, doors of perception are jarred open, if but temporarily, and with each opening you are a few steps closer to personal transformation. A personal transformation that can liberate you from abusive relationships with other humans of your kind, or self-abuse. Your psychologists frequently speak of self-concept and self-esteem and its importance in developing a rewarding and fulfilling and satisfactory existence. They are correct. However, they have not exhausted the information on the subject. And frequently, as human beings, you shut off your perceptions because you feel overwhelmed when too much new data comes your way. It is like learning a foreign language. You have to regress back to the old familiar roots, the old language that you grew up with for a while and rest because it is almost effortless, because it is so well rehearsed. Your identities, your self-concepts are the same way. They are so well rehearsed, and you identify with your self-concept so completely that there seems to be no separation between the spiritual you, the virtual you, to most of you, coming from an ego perspective, and the real you. The real you is a portion of your energy that does not identify with any of the events occurring in your physical existence, whether it be a divorce, a love relationship, meaningful transitions in job and career, attaining personal success in the fashion industry or the cosmetic industry, or as a maid, a housewife, or a cook at a donut shop at 4 a.m. in the morning meeting your quota. You reward yourselves due to your conditioning and give yourself a shot of pleasure, activating the pleasure centers in the mind when you have accomplished something that you set out to do. How many times have you not finished an activity and felt flustered and incomplete? You could not rest. You then move into a sense of self-condemnation and eventually wash your hands of the whole matter if you are mentally healthy. But others of you would tend to continue on the same road, tried and true process, and continue to beat yourself up. In such cases, you exhaust your emotional energies and reduce your capacity to be receptive to new stimuli in the present moment tense of consciousness. Without becoming too verbally sophisticated, I want to tie this in to your personal relationships, to human concepts of love and bonding and intimacy, to self-understanding, self-respect, and self-love, and also to experiencing that type of adulation and admiration being beamed at you from a caring other that genuinely has your best interest at heart in a balanced fashion that is not altogether selfish and not too impersonal. In the stratum of your society, you have many levels and types of relationships, from the strictly business relationship where a job is done and money changes hands with its associated responsibilities, to the very personal, private, intimate, sexual relationship, where a different type of transaction seems to be taking place but frequently is not. Many of you would have the question, how do I get more of this precious emotional experience of being adored and appreciated and cuddled and held and worshipped from another? When will I have that relationship where I can really give and care for another and not be so self-centric, able to give myself up in the emotional support and perhaps even the financial support of feeding and nourishing another human creature of similar orientation, male or female? It is in the giving of yourselves rather non-selfishly, frequently without expectation of affection being returned in kind, that you become most capable of giving up this addiction to I being the most important pleasure principle in your existence. I am not going to downgrade the functions of the ego and egotistical self-obsessions so common to teenagers and narcissistically self-absorbed spiritual types and individuals, but rather simply make the comment that each phase of evolution involving narcissism and self-absorption may be essential to the resurrection and the strengthening of certain supportive egotistical processes that lend a richness and texture to one's development, if not carried on too long. There is a sense of timing and perspective naturally integrated into your rhythms if you have not become psychologically or emotionally dysfunctional due to past relationships, emotional injuries, genetic conditioning, societal conditioning, and a host of other factors. Timing is everything. Timing is like location, as location is like attitude. All are a manner of psychological or physical placement. So the question, how can I get more love, really is being answered in terms of giving more love. The old dictum in your biblical testament and in other biblical texts, much older as well, the knowledge that is timeless knowledge contained within these books, these human writings. To give is to receive, or to do unto others as you would have them do unto you is a damn good start for the majority. If you are always having to be recompensated for all of your behavior, then you would be one who is holding out on your emotional relationships. And the level of reward that you would be experiencing is being highly structured and colored by this value system that you must always be recompensated for your donations of time and money. Of course, there are certain agreements that exist in the physical world. You, as human beings, believe in the bill system, in paying the utilities. You keep money flowing, bite into the system, and it is not a bad or an evil or degraded system, but it is a system that needs some management and some upgrading and some improvement, just like many of you need to work on psychologically to improve your relationships. So this question of how to get more love, how to be held in the high esteem and the apple of someone's eye, which is the secret, cherished drive of so many, is a worthy and ponderable question, and one to which I am responding. It all boils down and relates back to self-concept. If you have gone a number of years in youth, in early adulthood, in later adulthood, in midlife, feeling unloved and unappreciated, you can develop a narcissistically sarcastic attitude. One that makes great in front of a live audience in the field of comedy and entertainment, but not one that will enrich your personal, private relationships and give you the affection that you truly desire. The human tendency, and the tendency of all self-sentient creatures, is to compensate for a perceived sense of lack in emotional relationships. When was the last time you held another human being in your arms and gave of yourself emotionally without requesting something in return? A very good and worthy question. When was the last time you wrote a note or sent a videotape, if you choose to be more creative, to a person in need and simply let them know that you care? Even if you cannot intervene financially or emotionally, perhaps you are too tied up in your value system to be able to make the effort. Or a host of other important considerations may be preventing you from contributing your time and resources. But just the action of being thoughtful tends to invoke an equivalation response from those around you. On the job, at work, and in personal relationships, if you tend to give more than is demanded, it tends to be equivalated back. Unless there are self-sabotage tendencies within your psychology, then you tend to feel taken advantage of or not appreciated for your behavior, or donations of time, material resources, and emotional energy. As human beings, you want to be equivalated in your physical lives, not feeling like that your relationships are one-sided, one-ended, black hole relationships that will constantly and chronically consume massive amounts of personal, emotional energy and physiological fuel. You want a reward for a job well done. And too many times you go through your day without patting yourself on the back and giving yourself the positive reinforcement and respect that you need. But how many times could you also extend this worthy action onto others, making a difference in their lives and in their affairs, and making the world altogether a better place because you are reducing tension? Sometimes, rather than complaining that things are not right, it does you well to offer a possible solution. Rather than delegating authority about who should do the dishes, or wash the car, or mow the lawn, or watch the children, sometimes just doing what needs to be done because it needs to be done is a very worthy, selfless method of contributing to the holistic welfare of your personal life as an ecosystem in which others are involved in your welfare and in your development. Communication, again, in all of my trans dialogues, is a very important issue in personal happiness and in personal fulfillment, in personal relationships. If you are putting it out there that you are seeking a worthy mate, an equal, somebody to cherish you and to support you in your evolution, somebody who will equivalate you emotionally, financially, or a combination of other factors for a sufficient period of time, the chances are you will more than likely wind up with just such a person. Though it may take a number of years, 2, 3, 4, 7, a number of years. Again, as I stated in my last communication about manifestation and achieving those things that you want and attaining those conditions, people, circumstances that you want in your life and affairs, it is very good not to put a timeline on manifestation, not to be waiting for things to happen, but to be making things happen inside of you, by living the dream inside of you and reviewing it persistently and consistently over and over so that it becomes personally tangible and real. If you visualize your relationships as what I shall term zenile relationships, zenith relationships, relationships at the peak of ripeness and productivity and emotional reward, where all of your basic expectations have been fulfilled, and act as if this is the case, you will tend to induce this experience. Now, however, if you tend to view the opposite, the fact that you are not getting your needs met, you are not being sufficiently emotionally appreciated, you are not being found sufficiently desirable, you are not receiving the responses that you desire, if you continue this, you will tend to create this in your personal experience. Your life experience is composed of patterns, an interaction between your inner world, your inner ecosystem, and the outer world, an outer ecosystem. And it is an interplay between the inner and outer realities that create the results that you are experiencing. Your personal relationships is your most intimate feedback mechanism that allows you to understand the programming in the deeper layers of your consciousness, but perhaps even in your subconscious as well, for superconscious as well, because the superconscious is not free of programming. Because one has achieved a certain level of so-called cosmic consciousness does not mean they have escaped programming. It is not unusual for me to divide man's psychic vehicles into a number of the following categories: the physical, the lower etheric, the higher etheric; the astral, which includes the lower astral and the higher astral; the emotional, which includes the lower emotional and higher emotional; the mental, which includes the lower mental and the higher mental; and the spiritual, which includes the lower spiritual and the higher spiritual. Only until you have achieved the higher spiritual are you free of programs. And the only way to achieve the higher spiritual is to abolish your programs. For those interested in initiation and higher levels of mystical attainment and consciousness, and also fulfillment in personal relationships, it is very important to deal with certain values that may be operative within your personal psychoanalytic processes in your value systems. And that is when you can achieve some semblance of extended consciousness beyond ego consciousness, a more cosmic version of yourself existing and expressing in the physical world, and the psychological and social world, and still have healthy and fulfilling and exciting and enriched relationships that are rewarding and that work for you and also work for those involved with you. We will return momentarily. I will delve deeper into the subject with a bit of a dry wit and some creativity. I suggest also constant review of the material. The concepts are large, but they are broken into sufficiently digestible units of data and information that I understand you will be very capable of comprehending the material with very little conscious effort indeed. The very fact that you would be watching this video would indicate that the deeper layers of your consciousness are cooperating with a force larger and more powerful than you conceive yourself to be. Perhaps a coincidence is occurring. Now, I would suggest a break, and we will return. It may sound general, and it is, but still it is an effective method of inducing into manifestation a relationship. And that is to have a love affair with your life. Many of my friends in the physical world are not having a love affair with life. It is almost a law of supernature. When you are loving your life and reaching the peak, the ripeness of your personal fulfillment in your life, in terms of doing things that are enthusiastically stimulating, tantalizing, and rewarding to you, that you attract a host of available selections for matehood. Because human beings are drawn, like bees to honey, to that indescribable charisma attributed to star quality. When you are enveloped in a personal magnetism of self-fulfillment, you are high on your own neurochemicals. And this feeling, this sensation of tantalization and excitement, the joy of the chase, the interest in the process, the fulfillment of manifestation of the end result, is also exciting to prospective mates, individuals that before would have felt that you were out of their class range in terms of physical appearance, in terms of your locality and living, in terms of your accomplishments in life, would suddenly become interested in you. Because it is a certain non-physical quality called personality, called charisma. A certain emotional buoyancy existing around you, a churning in the electrical vibrational field called the aura. When you walk into a room, the electricity ignites the interest patterns of those around you. When you are at one with the life process that you have selected, a certain amount of joy permeates the cells and the lymph and the blood of the body. This joy affects the chemical alloys and combinations evaporating from your physical pores. And this floods the energy field. Adrenaline and testosterone and the androgens, the male and the female hormones floating in the bioenergetic field, are breathed through the nostrils and excite certain cerebral and non-cerebral potentials, including potentials in the reptilian brain, that stimulate the mating and bonding behavior in the human organism. Many of your perfume manufacturers are aware of this, and the gifts of roses of various colors and flowers of various covers to a potential prospective romancee, that is, the receiver of your affections, is not an unusual custom cross-culturally in your world. Mankind has always given flowers. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, mankind was giving flowers. He was happy to have survived the winter. He frequently knelt down on all fours and ate them, grazing very much like a goat. But then table manners were not so important. Getting your vegetation was. A cat or a dog, having consumed too much fat and protein, may instinctually eat weeds and grass, not only to regurgitate, but the enzymes are necessary to the digestion of protein and its assimilation within the physical body. There are also powerful antimicrobial, antibacterial, and antiviral substances within fresh young sprouts of various kinds. Among the more potent are wheatgrass sprouts, but grass is grass. When young, there are the highest concentration of the life force radiating out of these young vegetations. Life force creates that excitement in your energy field and that ability to project your voice across the room while whispering. A certain resonance quality within your physical voice has command presence. Your vocal tones in communication when you are in love with your life are different than when you are frustrated at a specific element of your life and become emotionally wrapped up in that discordant energy. Then when you talk on the phone to your friends or your lovers, they perceive this anxiety and frustration, and this stimulates their patterns. If they have learned good emotional patterns of behavior, then they will deal with it well and offer suggestions and be by to help you out. If they have learned avoidance responses to stress rather than handling life stresses, they will suddenly be out of your life or break communication until the bad weather floats over. I'm sure all of my human friends watching this video and the audience watching the filming and participating in the filming of the video have heard of Fairweather Friends. These are the people that flitter and flutter around you when things are going fine, when you are not physically ill, when you are not in financial distress, when you are not having a problem with your love affair. Nothing is more clarifying than in the breakup of a marriage or a relationship where there was the sharing of mutual friends and seeing how friends take sides, because each friend will take sides according to their own certain level of psychological perspective and development. At such times, during such conflictful and tumultuous circumstances, you can see the base patterns, the black and white of their personalities. All humans have black and whites to their personalities. Those fundamental patterns of avoidance or confrontational, interactive, or fight or flight response behavior they will regress to when the going gets tough. You may wish to ask yourself what type of friends you have in your life, and are these the type of friends you want in your life? And then you want to ask yourself a very significant question. Why are these people, if they are not the right people in your life, in your life? What aspect of your identity, what dysfunctional pattern, or what need is being fulfilled? Your psychologist will always ask you this question, as well as how does that make you feel and pay your bill? And say I said so with humor. For I have many friends in your world who are indeed psychologists, and legally registered ones as well. During stress in your physical lives, you get to see what patterns of behavior have not been assimilated. When you are down and out, whether it be a small town in Kansas, Missouri, Texas, the Bronx in New York City, or Beverly Hills, is when you get to see how well your spiritual work on yourself has penetrated. Have you actually improved the programs within yourself, or simply developed highly efficient deception responses where you have been able to fool yourself into believing that you have made all of these improvements and thus effectively been able to fool your friends and acquaintances as well? Self meets self in all aspects of physical experience. And once again, I must make another metaphysically accurate statement. Your social relationships are a mirror of some aspect of your assimilated or your non-assimilated self-concept. It is very hard for many individuals to accept compliments. They deflect them. It is very hard for other individuals on the opposite end of the spectrum to live without a massive barrage of consistent reinforcement in the form and feedback as compliments. Males in particular in Western culture have a difficult time accepting compliments unless it is in a sort of non-direct fashion. Females are conditioned to be more receptive to compliments. Their physical appearance is concentrated on as a means of social value, frequently more so than their intellectual, emotional, and other contributions. While in Western society, frequently it is the man's educational status, income potential, and other patterns that are used as standards of grading others and self in society. But you all grade, measure, and value each other according to a number of subliminal and non-subliminal factors. In spiritual development and relationships, you learn to become acutely, almost self-consciously and embarrassingly aware at first. It is only an initial stage of development of the cues and the vibes. I'm using a 60s term for those of you who were there. I was there. My psychic was not there. That you are sending out to those around you. When you are self-absorbed and not aware of the vibes you are sending out, you can experience a host of unnerving reactions. Recently, my psychic Shimoke has been breaking an inordinately large number of household items. Subconsciously, these items are symbolic of breaking through a feeling of oppression, being translated into an unconscious autonomic nervous system activity, resulting in broken physical items, usually cup-shaped items. In a sense, subconsciously, this means breaking out of the vagina and being reborn. Pardon me for using one of your buzzwords in this communication, but I'm being very honest. Recently, another friend of my psychic had a vehicle stolen. He had a subconscious wish to have this precious vehicle replaced and currently is experiencing a lag in the flow of income due to certain life challenges taking place. The stolen vehicle may very well be replaced, but was it really stolen? In a sense, I must use true life examples because they are immediately available and carry a certain level of vitality to them. There are many others, several thousand examples that I could excite you with and enlighten you with, but I will not venture into this. Suffice it to say that your life circumstances are prearranged and set up on a deeper level of consciousness, and this can be very, very difficult for you to accept. There is not one person in your life, that on some level is not a prearranged relationship. Telepathic communications take place 24 hours a day in time and space dimensions and in non-time and space continuums as well. The universe would not function as well as it does without these telepathic communications. Plants communicate telepathically, but not through mental telepathy, for they have no cerebrium and no mind component that the human mind could understand. But it is a more primal, energetic type of energy transference, a more primal type of communication, based on beeps and signals and units of energy. And likewise, there is interdimensional communication between various realms from which entities, such as myself, may ascend or descend or, in a sideways fashion, enter into your dimension and communicate with other self-conscious beings. One law that is popular and well known among many and very useful to remember is that consciousness, like water, always seeks its own level. This is, in particular, very true in human relationships. And this bounces back to statement number 1. There is not one relationship in your life that on some level is not identically, I said identically, reflective of some assimilated or unassimilated self-concept within you. How you deal with others, when pressed, when frustrated, when happy, has a lot to do with how you deal with yourself and how you treat yourself. If you beat yourself up when you do not perform well, more than likely, if you are pressed beyond a certain limit of frustration, you will wind up beating up others as well. Now, some of my friends and colleagues in the physical universe, but in other non-physical dimensions as well, would rather beat themselves up than others. There is a certain reward to this. Rather than holding back your emotions, sometimes it is very beneficial simply to scream and to get them out in the privacy of your own home, while doing laps in your pool, driving your Mercedes, or shooting darts at the local bar. Any number of ways can be used to get out frustrated emotional energy. Many of my human friends are chronically asking, how come those things that I am asking for are manifesting in a very unlikely sense? Why is the magic not working like it usually does? I was on a roll for a while, and it is because for a period of time, due to the way that your nervous system is designed, one area of your nervous system was dominating, and there are astrological forces that play a role here. For a period of time, one area of your nervous system is dominating, and that area of your nervous system contains a certain type of belief system. While that area of your nervous system is dominating, you will experience certain types of results in your life because you are sending out certain signals. However, there is the flip side to things. When the other side of the nervous system kicks in, it can almost like, it can be experienced like you are another personality, which you are in a sense, but there is usually a smooth veneer that you are very efficiently erected to prevent the recognition that this may be the case. And during this time, you may experience the opposite results, or other results as well, in the field of manifestation. That are not the idyllic results that you were initially experiencing in your activities. You go through periods where life is not a hit and a miss phenomena, but a ride-on phenomena where your arrows, your behavior, so to speak, generates the results that you wish, only to be followed by a period where you seem to backslide, become stuck in the hogwash and the mush of the sticky emotions resulting from other value systems stored within other areas of your neuroanatomy. I would like to encourage my viewers, in the privacy of their own home or in a group setting, whichever way you learn best, which is determined on which side of your nervous system is dominating. Though side is not an accurate term here, for this nervous system is equally distributed everywhere throughout the body. To investigate a very well-known field called psycholinguistic programming. Many of you have investigated this intellectually, and many of my friends have one degree after another in metaphysical, semi-metaphysical, spiritual, semi-spiritual, and every psychology degree that is imaginable, and are not the least bit enriched by it, because it was all an intellectual exercise and was not processed emotionally. On the other hand, there are those others who have benefited immensely and have been able to expedite their level of manifestation and personal attainment in their lives. And so I would encourage you to investigate the field. It is not a complete field, and all of the concepts are not accurate, but they are being consistently refined, much like the field of medicine. Should be. And hopefully is being refined in your major metropolitan and in your urban areas also. And give us a moment. Karmically speaking, on the karmic scales of balance, you will always wind up, while a physical creature, treating others according to the way that you feel about yourself and your relationship to reality. And as you treat others, so indeed do you treat yourself. The genuine intent to help others achieve their objectives and desires is one surefire way to ensure that you meet yours. Because life in your world, among your species, is indeed a social affair. It is a rare bird indeed that truly likes to do everything alone. You always have to have your sidekicks and your chosen, treasured company. And this is fine. It is just one of the characteristics of your mammalian species, that is intelligence. It is also not an uncommon characteristic of other species as well. On all levels, however, of your personal and social experience, you have to be aware of the signals that you are sending the world. And if you are confused as to the results you are getting, you once again must take a look at yourself. Look in the mirror very closely before you go to work in the morning, or for the afternoon shift, or in the evening. And take a look, an honest look at your physical self. Human beings are visually and tactically oriented mammals. They will first see you. Then they will form other impressions of you. And they have very powerful reactions indeed to those perceptions. They will instantly categorize you and decide your worthiness within approximately 30 seconds, frequently before you have had a chance to utter a word or even compose yourself. Now, this does not mean you should become chronically paranoid about your appearance, because you all have to cut loose once in a while. But physical appearance is a vital, genuine reality that you all have to deal with. You all adopt certain physical appearance modalities that seem to work best for you in terms of comfort. And out of those zones of self-expression, frequently and in many cases, you will be unwilling to step. I am not asking you to be uncomfortable. In spiritual development, however, in the attainment of personal power and improving your success potentials and your happiness and fulfillment in personal relationships, you may have to be willing to experience a self-induced makeover. During that makeover, you may have to experiment with many different looks and appearances. It is not unusual for a schoolgirl to look one way at school, different when she is on a date, and different when she is at church. Why should you, at any age, be any different? Should you not have a variety of physical appearances that you can draw upon? Power appearances, power of image that you can utilize to swing cells in your favor. And is not successful social relationship the result of the ability to have impact, to be persuasive, to hear, to genuinely understand, and to communicate. Since you are primarily visually oriented organisms, then physical appearance is one of those things that you must address. Too many of my earthen friends place too little emphasis upon this, feeling that it is sinful to be vain, or that there is something spiritually correct with taking care or modifying the features of the physical formation, and honestly believe that God made you the way you are. Why should you tamper with it? Why should you pluck your eyebrows? Why should you change your hairstyle? Why should you use hair dye? Why should you wear padded shoulders in your clothes? Why should you lift weights? Why should you indulge in physical exercise? And sure, many of you will say, well, for health reasons, I will exercise. But for aesthetic reasons, you believe those who work on physical appearance are inferior, when in fact they are basically simply being more truthful about trying to improve how they feel about themselves. And many human behaviors and psychological drives are the results of a feeling of inferiority. It makes no difference what motivates you to improve yourself, so long as you improve yourself. Spiritual development is not all about simply accepting things the way they are, for surely there then would be no reason for me to communicate. Rather, I, like the industrialists, and like the seers of ages past in your dimension, seek to see improvement in the quality of life and education of all self-sentient life forms in your world and your dimension. And that means, as a spiritual aspirant, you constantly seek to open your mind and your heart to new experiences, and to listen to the flux and flow of spirit in your existence, what those of Christianic faith may call the Holy Spirit. What is the Holy Spirit? What does it mean? What is the flux and flow of spirit in your life? What do vibes have to do with personal success? And how can wearing a shirt of a certain color determine how many cars you sell at work on the lot, or how many dates you get, or how many negative emotional reactions that you get from the social world? Underestimating the power of shape and form and color is one of the surest means to business frustration, sabotage, and success, and also, in fact, to romantic disappointment. Physical appearance is important because to those who are viewing you, you are the statement you are making visually. If you look poor, it may be more difficult for you to attract wealth. If you drive a Mercedes and are a member of the country club and wear designer clothes and look like you have shampooed and combed your hair, and do not look ravaged by the sun with sun-damaged skin, it may be much easier for you to swing an insurance sell to a prospective client than did you not look this way. In fact, the probabilities are astronomical. In my psychic shimokes and consciousness, Levi's personal experience, the client is very impacted by visual experience, not only of Shimoke or Levi, but frequently Levi sees hundreds of examples a year of lost cells having to do with physical appearance. Many corporations and companies will put those who look offensive in the back room. A certain type of judgmentalism and values are involved here, but you are human beings. You cannot escape these things. And so, certain important positions would tend to be given, for instance, and I am not being rude but factual, to those who appear more youthful and have more hair. But when their hairlines begin to recede, they may suddenly be encouraged to modify the situation. This is in high-profile, high-income situations. Now there are exceptions to this general rule, but you exist and you live in the structure of mainstream society. And you will find that you are able to have greater business success and also greater success in your relationships if you look at them as a well-tuned and run business than you would otherwise. Because in your physical dimension, it is all the interplay of energy. And energy seeking some form of equilibrium, either through stimulation or relaxation of the initial charge that generates the situation. Many human beings are looking to compensate for their own unrealized potentials in a mate, and live in great turmoil and emotional frustration because they have not found this throughout the duration of their physical existence, or they are prone to have short-term relationships that end with a bang but also start with a bang. Are you one of those that chronically find something wrong with your relationships? Good question. In all of my communications, I am going to ask you to take a look at your opinions and your opinion simplexes and complexes. Where there are 2 or 3 opinions, you have an opinion simplex. Where there are more than 2 or 3 opinions, it becomes more complex, and hence you have an opinion complex. I thought I would offer a short note of explanation, that is, for those who would be interested. Your psychology has a very important and profound effect on your relationships. You can get what you need from just about anybody if you are capable of sending forth the correct signals in the correct cadence and sequence. Almost nothing will be denied you. On the other hand, if you are too heavily identified with one particular self-concept, then you will not be sufficiently versatile and able to generate the type of reactions that you want in your romantic affairs. Now, it's not unusual in my psychic's experience, and in many other individuals' psychotherapists' experience as well, for a highly successful businessman to be miserable in their personal romantic life and in their family life. And it is not unusual for one who is very happy with their family life to be miserable in their business life. This is an acute and common unbalance that should be addressed. For if one is being spiritually empowered, then one should be mutually happy not only in business, but at home as well. We are talking about reaching and existing in a holistic plane of reality, in which the overall quality of personal existence is much enhanced. So, again, your personal relationships are your most intimate feedback mechanism. Those that you are romantically involved with, those that you are in love with on some level, or have feelings of kindness or affection for. Those most likely to disappoint you and have the capacity to seemingly hurt you are those that you bond to intensely emotionally, and this usually occurs through the sexual centers of the psychic bodies and the physical body as well. How many of my psychic clients have sworn off men and women and relationships and decided simply to devote their energies to manifesting the life they want, and having successfully done this, actually experience for the first time a successful relationship? This is why I frequently put forth the hypothesis: it is more important to be happy and fulfilled than it is to be married. If you are seeking happiness within a relationship exclusively, which tends to happen with those of obsessive streak, which is not uncommon, then you are bound to be disappointed or self-sabotage at some point, because another human being cannot fulfill all of your potentials. It was not intended to be that way. There are some special exceptions to this. In this particular video, however, I will not go into this because it is detailed. Taking a look at yourself, then, in the mirror, before going to work, anticipate what type of reactions you believe you are going to get. You all have little delusions. what you believe has worked for you before, and you are not being objective with yourself or others about your physical appearance. That does not mean that my viewers in the physical world should all go have their face or nose or body modified to please another. This is up to you. Fortunately, however, you do live in a world where these things are available. For only 100 years ago, biology was destiny for those imprisoned within the lower dimensions of consciousness. By simply modifying one physical attribute, you can change your entire life in just a few weeks. I am not advocating plastic surgery. What I am stating, however, is a pragmatic reality that is inescapable. If you look tired, you will not have the level of success and impact that you would have if you looked sharp and refreshed. How many times a day at work, when you have the opportunity, or when you are dealing with the public, do you freshen up? We are not saying that you should be in the mirror and chronically comb your hair all the time, obsessively, like some beauty queens that we know, male and female alike. No, what we are suggesting is that you pay particular close attention to your hygiene, to the way that your breath smells, to the way that your body smells. How many times has it been that your friends announced that when they walk by somebody at the grocery store there was bad BO? You are physical creatures. The physical senses have a psychological impact on you. Hence, hygiene, something that should be well known by all, the quality and standards and level of hygiene vary considerably. Many males actually prefer to smell musty. To those of more delicate, sensual temperament and sensitivity, this can be a very overpowering experience. 100 years ago, you didn't have much choice. 100 years ago, few of you had video cameras and a car and typewriters and refrigerators. What is responsible for this massive social and industrial explosion that has taken place? Certain astrological and fundamental changes in the way that you use your brains, education. What was responsible for these social changes being erected in your world? Unseen forces are responsible. You might as well call it the intervention of angels, in essence. Because the way that civilization has been headed, you are lucky that you have a city to be in today with mankind's violent tendencies. I will not go into the details on this. This discussion is about personal attainment in the field of love. And love is really virtually inseparable from the rest of your life. Again, it boils down to being a happy person, being a fulfilled person, and being a satisfied person. Developing your communication skills and enlarging your vocabulary. Second, it has to do with modifying your physical presentation. Working with different images of you that put your best foot forward, non-delusionally. Justifications will not work. Delusions do not work here. Self-deception does not work. Unfortunately, many spiritually oriented individuals live in a world concocted of dreams and fantasies that have not been validated in their dimension. Half-baked truths that are almost true and almost real. Not only metaphysically identified individuals, but most human beings live in this ego bubble of artificial and self-created realities. And they justify the negative events occurring in their life according to this value system and these blind spots that I refer to frequently in all of my communications. And that is why they are mentioned, because they are so powerful and pivotal to success in love and romance. Your self-concept is going to always have a very profound effect on the way that those that love you love you. How much intimacy are you capable of tolerating before you pull the plug on the relationship? Do you have fears of intimacy? Is being loved by too many people, more than you are comfortable with, a bad thing? Is it wrong to be popular? Is there something spiritually incorrect about being powerful and popular? About having good communication skills and the ability to put others at ease, the ability to get a point across, and the ability to help a group of others manifest a similar vision. Communication will always, in every aspect of human life, be the main tool of achievement, success, and change and transmutation of you and your society. More importantly, this begins with you, the ability to communicate with you, not stuffing and suppressing your feelings. The biggest cause of overweight is stuffing emotions. The energy fields in a person that is fixing to become overweight will bulge several weeks before physical weight is added to the physical body in that area. So a thin person can be walking around with a psychic tire, and a clairvoyant will say, "What is that?" Several weeks before a woman knows that she becomes pregnant, for some reason did not suspect it, or denied it, or whatever, a clairvoyant would see her stomach bulging, and even the sex of the unborn child, and whether or not that child was going to come to term. Depending on the depth and level of the clairvoyant, they will also know the reincarnational history of that child. Your present could have easily have been predicted from a host of factors before it manifested. This refers back then to practicing preordaining consciously, conscious living, conscious loving, conscious success. Rather than relying upon chance, you live life in a more educated and self-educated fashion. So that relationships are not a hit-and-miss experience that terrorize you and injure you and traumatize you so that you swear off of all relationships altogether. Though it is not uncommon for me to advise my earth friends to swear off relationships for at least a year, or at least the sexual component of relationship. For many. Because once the sexual energies become involved, if they are dealing with a non-initiated mere mortal, it can become a highly complex phenomena in which, again, deception and the repetition of patterns comes into play. Patterns of unconsciousness. What is a psychologist there for in your world? A psychologist is there to help you identify omissions in your thought process. Not to diagnose you as schizophrenic or ill, though this is sometimes the case. I am an interdimensional psychiatrist. I do not have a degree, but I existed before any of your literature or any of your pharmacology was available. What I am here to do is to communicate reality. A spiritual being on the path is not dealing with delusions. They are dealing with the ability to empower the imagination through the intellect and through love to change reality. This is called magic. Magi. Those who practice the use of non-physical energies to communicate with the earth kingdom to produce change. Those who carry the wisdom. The time has come in your Earth's evolutionary history where you do not live under delusions. You cannot have an efficient impact on your relationships, on your physical health, or on your financial success and level, or your level of attainment if you are operating under false assumptions. Now, it is very important that you understand that the little ego will always do its very best to arrange data in a fashion to validate your misconceptions. The little self, the little ego, will always find a way to try to maintain its power over the holistic self which you are. It will, under many circumstances, try to convince you that there are no other realities and that beings like me are figments of some psychic's or nutcake's imagination. Whether or not you believe this true is virtually irrelevant, for I am a genuine being and I really care not what you think. What I care about instead is the fact that I push a sufficient number of psychotherapeutic buttons that you begin to function for the first time in your existence. I am not concerned with inferior functioning or minor progress, though I encourage it. Big results in your world, in your existence, are the product of many, many minor events taking place. An infinite number of acts and events must take place for any manifestation to manifest in your world. All that you really need to do is be willing to ask yourself some questions and feel the hurt and get through the hurt, perhaps with the assistance of a priest or a friend or a clairvoyant or some other consultant or somebody who you respect. Process through the hurt so that the hurt no longer causes you to avoid dealing with conflict zones and areas in your personal existence. And you all have these. The only thing standing in the way between you and the God version of you, or you manifesting the ego ideal even, or the holistic ideal of yourself, is your fear. And your fear of doing what needs to be done and going through the pain necessary and the recuperation necessary to recover from the psychological injury of dealing with truth is what is keeping most from having the satisfying, fulfilling relationships that they seek and deserve. And all of your friends will always project their own fears into the outcomes of your situation. You get a consensus from all of your friends, and you juggle the consensus, and you weigh the information, and what seems to jive with your belief system is what you will bond with, and what you do not like you will discard, just like with what I tell you. Here we are dealing only with reality. As an interdimensional educator, I have no use for incomplete understandings. Neither do you. Getting about the business of self-introspection, this is where it will always begin. And every great spiritual teacher and educator and preachy foreman will tell you that. On some level. No longer can you blame your parents or your educators. The secret to personal empowerment and success in love, as well as in business and any area of your life, is taking back your own power. And that means being willing to do something you have never done before. It may mean jumping out of an airplane in a parachute or bungee jumping. It may mean driving a car for the first time. It may mean going back to graduate school. It may mean changing jobs midstream. It may mean having an abortion. It may mean forcing your man to use a condom. It may mean 1,001 things, different to all of you, according to the information imprints and the psychobabble in your emotional programs. What you believe is real and what is real are frequently opposed. In that schizophrenic condition, suspended between reality and a self-construed reality, how can you have an efficient impact in any dimension if you are torn apart due to such an inner conflict? This is why integration by advanced spiritual communicators is always an issue, is always a subject of main concern. Integration means you accept your faults and you improve your faults. You correctly assess the situation and you do not project your faults onto others. An overabundantly large number of the human population is into making others responsible for their faults and problems. If an overabundant number of the human population were fixing their faults and dealing with the lenses that produce the illusion of faults, your world would be a better place. But we are not here to change the world like some wide-eyed, youthful, ignorant hippie stoned on LSD. We are here to assist you in dealing with reality as sane, integrated, self-educated, and self-empowered mammals that call themselves human and view themselves through a concept complex. And by understanding that complex, you understand the dynamics that cause your emotions, your behavior, and create your reality. And by changing that complex, by defining it and tearing it apart in a safe fashion, by transforming, you can have the life and the existence that you have always wanted. Many of you already have the existence you have always wanted. Many of you have the pain and the abuse that you have always wanted. Many of you have the shade of success that you have always wanted. For many of you, this will mean raising your standards. Spirit always wants you to raise your standards for the spiritual economy, though it is very much a different economy than your physical one. It is not dependent upon cash, which is a human concept. It is dependent upon psychic ecosystems and the flow of interdependent and interconnected energy. It is never necessary to destroy one portion of nature to improve another. It is not necessary to destroy yourself, a portion of yourself, to improve yourself. Destruction is not the way. Absorption of a faulty self-image is efficient. But this is not destruction. This is integration. And integration allows you to stop projecting your fears and your philosophies and your opinions. Beliefs are like opinions, and buttholes, you will have them. They control your behavior, and they control how much intimacy and love and affection and emotional support you are willing to experience in your life. It does you little good then to rail against the person that you are in love with or against the world if you are unwilling to ask for what you want, if you are unwilling to upgrade your value system and your manner of experiencing reality to attract what you need from the external world. You are capable of magicians of consciousness, of manifesting perfect companions. But the rule of thumb is that you must then be a perfect companion. If you are not viewing yourself as having these highly desirable qualities, whatever they may be, it is unlikely you will attract somebody who will see these things. So an honest evaluation of what you conceive about yourself, especially the garbage, is very important. I am getting to the rudimentary fundamentals of how to have it all in love. However, these rules and these principles apply and are equally valuable in business. Occasionally, I will slightly exaggerate to get a point to stick. Vary the delivery of the information, the concepts used, to cause an entrainment of perception to help you rewire some of your romantic and financial and political wiring. All human existence is political. You cannot escape politics. What you cannot escape then must be dealt with. And the best way to deal with an adversary, if it must be adversary, is to understand and be able to think like your adversary. How many times have you heard such things? When you are playing chess, you learn to predict with some degree of intuitive precision what moves the other chess player is going to make. In a sense, so it is with your life. Make a list of what you do not want in a relationship, what you do not want in a mate, and what you do not want in yourself. Make another list of what you do want in a relationship, what you do want in a mate, and what you do want in yourself. And take some time to compile this list over a period of weeks. Whenever you have free time, review it and add something, but never subtract something. Not yet. Just this exercise, performed for an adequate length of time, an adequate length of time will allow you to purge different concepts within you that are limiting your experience of romantic love, but other types of love, for instance, sufficient friends as well. And we are talking about lovers and friends of quality. Now, I would suggest a termination to this communication. I hope it has not been too dry or too preachy. There are simply certain realities that exist, and no matter how you feel about it, it will not change those realities one iota. Hence, if you cannot change those realities, you must change your relationship to those realities. Does it not follow to achieve the results that you desire? I wish you all of the love that you feel you deserve, and I wish you all of the adulation and the success, the popularity and the empowerment and the comprehension that you are willing to accept. I bid you a fond, creative, and powerful existence. And should you need additional assistance, you can contact my psychic, Levi, in the waking states, the corporation, the film company that is producing these products, or you can dial me directly in the cosmos by spelling my name Anttarr over and over for about 10 minutes. You may or may not experience conscious communication. Are you open to such things? Do you have conflicting beliefs that would frustrate the communication? One cannot truly predict. One thing is for sure, I will deliver a charge of energy, and it will be aimed in a fashion to assist you in overcoming blocks in your comprehension and to get your life flowing again. All that I ask is when you receive results that you are asking for in any area, that you do something good for someone else and ask nothing in return. I bid you a fond, creative, and powerful existence then. Watch the psychic awaken. Ow. Oh. I'm Levi Longfellow Rochester, York. Just waking up. I feel like something very significant has just happened and I can't quite put my finger on it. I hope this has been entertaining and educational, and I would someday like to get to see this so I could be quality control. Thank you all for viewing, and thank all of my friends and acquaintances and support group for assisting, and thank you both for your time. Thanks.